The following program is sponsored by the Today's Home Remodeler television network.
Welcome to Today's Home Remodeler. I'm Stuart Keith, and on today's show, we're walking through the professional installation process of a lawn irrigation system. We'll begin with Don Dahlk from Capital Lawn Sprinklers, who will introduce our project and show how an irrigation system can be installed into an existing landscape without any noticeable disruption. We'll also learn how these systems can be custom designed to water specific areas of both lawn and planting beds, depending on their specific environmental conditions. And we'll finish up seeing how these professionally designed systems are equally effective in commercial applications. So we have a lot to cover today, and we'll get started right after these messages. A beautiful landscape is a great way to make a first impression of your home. But here in the upper Midwest, our hot summers can make it challenging to keep both lawn and planting beds aesthetically pleasing. So on today's show, we'll catch up with Don Dahlk from Capital Lawn Sprinkler, who will show us how a professionally designed irrigation system can help keep your landscape looking its best. Well, Don, what a great year for flower beds. Everything looks just beautiful.
Well, it has been a great year, Stu. As you know, and as everybody knows, we have had a lot of rain this year so far. So as far as the turf areas, the flower areas, it's been much easier to maintain from the homeowner standpoint.
Sure.
But typically in Wisconsin, in this area, we do have 4 to 6 to 8 weeks or possibly longer of hot, dry weather. And these things don't always look this way throughout the entire course of the summer.
Sure, and as we were talking earlier, despite the moisture this year, you're still busy as can be installing lawn irrigation systems. And I say lawn irrigation systems, but really it's much more than just the turf areas.
That's right. On this particular yard, the people are concerned with the lawn and the plantings. As you'll see, they do have quite a sizable investment in not only the turf areas and what goes into that in the maintenance end, but the planting areas as well.
Well, this is just a small area of this spectacular landscape. So let's head back and see how you guys are installing the system.
Okay.
Wow, Don, this is an absolutely beautiful backyard. To have a place this close to the city yet this peaceful, it's gorgeous. I can see why they want to maintain it as they do.
Right, it is a paradise.
Now, before we get into the specifics of this landscape design and the irrigation system you're installing, let's take a step back. And for the viewer out there watching, maybe they're considering a lawn irrigation system, but they don't know how to begin. So let's walk through your process.
Okay, there are a number of ways I can do the bid. I can bid off of a plot plan that they may get from a builder. I can also bid off of a landscape plan. My preferred way to do it is to actually visit the site. So I can see the lay of the land. We can talk about their objectives. Are they mainly concerned with the turf areas, with the grass? Are they concerned with the planting areas? Are they concerned with the whole thing? Do they want to separate the plantings from the turf areas and water it in more of a customized manner?
And so with your system, you can actually break it down into specific zones, either turf, landscape, or even zones within those zones?
Absolutely, and what we find oftentimes, and this is a good example of it, there may be different environments on one site where you have some full sun areas, you have some very shaded areas, you may have slopes, plant beds in the shade, plant beds in the sun, so all of that figures into how we come up with the end result.
Well, it makes sense to me. What I'm hearing is that you like to get to know the homeowners, learn their wants, needs, and desires, and ultimately design a system that's going to satisfy their specific landscape needs.
Absolutely.
Do you find that more people are concerned about planting beds versus the lawn? I mean, the lawn's important, but to me, you have thousands of dollars invested in plant material. I would think as a homeowner, that's where I'd want to be, making sure those are properly watered.
We're seeing that more and more, yes. People do have a sizable investment. The turf is a little more resilient. And as people are doing things, you can see these people have done a lot to this environment here.
Sure.
And it's beautiful, so why not install something to help you maintain it?
Now this setting has a well. Is there a difference as far as you're concerned, whether you have a well or city water and sewer?
There is a difference. Typically with the city water, we are working with a given pressure and volume. As we get into a well situation, we need to make sure that the well pump is big enough to supply us with pressure and volume to do what we need to do effectively and efficiently.
Probably another good reason why you like to get out and meet with the homeowners, because you can determine that, especially if you're on a well.
Right.
Okay, so once your guys arrived on site here, how did it all begin?
Okay, the system actually begins back here where we have our backflow prevention device. This particular setting has a master valve vacuum breaker, which is a state code item and needs to be installed by a licensed plumber, which I am, and we have on staff here, so we can do that.
And if someone hasn't heard of the term vacuum breaker, that's extremely important, because if you don't have one of those, isn't there a potential you could contaminate the water supply?
There could be a back siphonage, and you could contaminate your water in the house, the potable water system, in a back siphonage situation, yes.
Okay. Now over here I see an awful lot of flags as I look around the landscape. What are those for?
Well, we can start with this one. This is a flag from the Digger's Hotline marking the telephone. That is one of the other first steps we take before we hit the site, is to call Digger's Hotline, get the telephone, the cable, the gas marked, all of the public utilities.
Okay, so safety at the forefront, and that's your responsibility to take care of that.
That is our responsibility. The other thing that we check into, which goes back to our pre-site visit, do they have private utilities, drain tile, invisible dog fence, outdoor lighting, anything like that that we need.
How do you know where all that is if they don't even know?
Well, if they don't know, we have services that we work with that can locate those for them.
Again, so you're a full service, full turnkey operation here. The homeowner doesn't have to worry about contacting anybody to determine what's underneath their lawn.
Correct.
Okay, well that takes care of these flags, but I see some pink ones or purple ones, yellow ones, blue ones, red ones. What are those all for?
What they designate out here would be the different types of heads in the different types of zones. The green flag over here, for example, we have heads in this planting area.
Okay.
The purple flags will be a turf zone out here that will cover this area that we're looking at. The pink flags that run up the side here will be a zone of a different type of head that will water this planting area here.
Sure, and then the different color flags within the beds themselves too. Are those for specific heads? I mean, we talked about how proprietary this system can be for a certain area.
They are. This system, we have the turf areas and the planting areas separated out so they can be watered on separate programs on the same controller.
Stick around. Next, we'll see how these systems can be installed into an existing landscape with minimal disruption. So far in today's show, we've learned how a professionally designed irrigation system can keep your entire landscape looking great throughout our long, hot summers. Now let's continue with Don Dahlk from Capital Lawn Sprinkler, who shows how minimally invasive the installation of these systems can be in an existing landscape. Don, I'm always blown away when I see the ditch witch in action. That is an amazing piece of machinery.
Yes, it is. It allows us to get onto an established lawn like this one, install the pipe, do what we need to do, and typically within a week to 2 weeks later, you don't even know we're here.
Yeah, and it does such a neat job, and you use the term established lawn. And whether it's an established turf area or extravagant planting beds like this, I gotta believe homeowners are nervous about an irrigation company coming in and disturbing it all and leaving it in a mess and just waiting for it to grow back. But using machinery like the ditch witch, this is very non-invasive.
Right. Most people want to know what you're going to do to their lawn. And people do picture trenches throughout the lawn and mud and waiting half the summer for your lawn to come back. That's not the case here. There are areas where we do have to do extensive hand digging, and on most jobs we have a component of each, where we're doing hand digging here, machine work there.
Well, it's equipment like this and the expertise of your professionals here that really do separate the do-it-yourselfers or the weekend warriors that think it's easy to do this type of work with the professionals. I mean, They make it look easy, but in my opinion, it isn't that easy.
Right.
When we were walking up here, I saw there was a flag nearby, and you guys had actually hand dug to discover the cable TV line, was that?
That was the cable, and that is another piece of what we do here. Any marking we find, we open it up, try to find the cable or the telephone, whatever the case may be, find out what we need to do to go over it or under it. It would be nice to come out here and just cut loose with the machine, install pipe and put heads in and walk off the site done, but we don't get to do that. We need to take care of the utilities. We can't make a mess out here.
Yeah, and that's great peace of mind for the homeowner. Now, just out of curiosity, how deep down are you putting these water pipes?
This pipe will go in, depending on the subsoil, you'll be typically 6 to 14 inches deep.
And so that's not very deep when you're talking about freezing. Frost goes down 3-4 feet sometimes.
Right.
Do I have to be concerned with that if I'm a homeowner?
Nope, not at all. The system is blown out with compressed air, winterized with compressed air, so you don't have to worry about that. The piping system is low enough so you don't have to worry about aeration, those kinds of things, dethatching the lawn. You won't touch the pipe.
Well, professionally installed system, you've really thought of everything. What about the heads themselves? Do you offer many different types?
Yes, we do, Stu. Here are a few examples. In this spot right here, for example, we're going to put a turf rotor. And if you take a look at this, as the head comes up, it has a nice high pop on it. So that's going to come up like so, and is going to rotate through its arc, and so it'll be watering above the grass line, even if you leave it a little bit high during the summer months, which is recommended for the health of the lawn.
Sure, and a couple of things come to mind. I look at this, and that was tough, you know, pulling it up. There's a lot of pressure, but the water has that much pressure, and that's why you were saying you need specific pressure, whether you're on a well or the city.
Correct. Water pressure pops it up. There is a wiper seal on the head, so it is cleaned as it comes up and goes back down, so it doesn't stick up and you run over with the lawnmower, etc.
Sure, and speaking of lawn mowing, do I have to be concerned at all about hitting any of these heads in the lawn?
Nope, not at all. This will be installed slightly below grade, and again, will pop up over the turf area, so it will water efficiently and effectively.
Okay, so that takes care of the turf area, at least with a rotor version. What are some of these other ones we're looking at?
This is a 4-inch spray head. This head we would use in more of a confined turf area. We can throw 0 to 18 feet with this particular head.
Sure, and I think of some of the different areas in a landscape, it might just be a small area of lawn, or maybe along a sidewalk or driveway where you have a 2 or 3 foot strip of lawn.
Correct. Again, popping up over the grass, water efficiently and effectively. When it's off, back down.
Okay, what's this big one right here?
All right, this is the 12-inch version. This we would use more in the planting areas, and this allows us to get into those areas, again, water effectively, get up over some of the taller, more mature plants. This goes into kind of that initial setup of the system, looking at the characteristics of the lawn and the planting areas and putting in the right head in the right place.
Sure, and as I look at that, I see the hostas in the background, and you know, these are beautiful. Some hostas are even bigger, and there's lots of other plants in a landscape design. The homeowner can rest assured with equipment like this and different spray heads that their system is going to be specifically designed for their needs.
That's correct. Again, going back to the initial setup and even the initial site visit to see what we need in the given areas, so we make sure we give them an efficient, effective system.
Well, you know what I really like about seeing this landscape design is it was a beautiful established landscape, turf areas. I'm sure the homeowners were apprehensive at first that something was going to be damaged, but when I look at this and the machinery and the attention to detail your professionals do, I got to believe within 5 or 10 days, they're not even going to know that you were here.
That's correct. What we will do here, we will cut the sod out, dig out the dirt, do our fitting, set our head, put the dirt back in, sod back on top, tamp it down and rake it up. And like I said, within a week to 2 weeks, you don't even know we're here. Once we begin watering, all of these seams and cracks that we've created with the pipe pulling will heal right up.
Now, along the lines of installation, how long does a project like this usually take?
Well, a project like this, with its scope such as it is probably going to take the better part of a week.
Really?
Yes.
But you do them probably within 2 days to a week is pretty fair to say?
Yeah, most residential systems will go in about 2.5 days.
Well, I gotta believe these homeowners are gonna be elated with the end result.
Right.
Stay tuned, we'll visit a commercial project next. Earlier in today's show, we discussed how a professionally designed and installed irrigation system can keep your entire landscape looking great. Now let's finish up with Don Dahlk from Capital Lawn Sprinkler to learn how these systems work equally well in a commercial application.
Stu, I wanted to bring you here to this commercial setting, which is a growing segment of our business. Just kind of show you the other side, the commercial side, as opposed to the residential. This actually has an interesting story to it. We installed a system in the owner's home in 2013 and then added to it this spring when they had done some renovations in their backyard. Obviously here, the type of business they are, they're here limited hours during the course of the day. It's just not efficient for them to come out here and set up sprinklers. They've got far too much to do, and it's not practical for them to water it on their own.
Yeah, and it makes total sense to me, because if you own a business, a commercial property, you want to have that curb appeal. And I tell you, with nice looking plants, a nice lawn, it doesn't get any better than that.
That's right. So what they'll have here, and you can see all the pipe in the ground, we'll be watering the turf area independent from the flower areas and this raised planter box.
You know, despite the fact that it's a very small area, there is an awful lot of pipe in the ground.
Yeah, this is a very hard area to water, so we're going to end up with a lot of heads in here, and it'll be very efficient, very effective. We'll be able to water the turf area and give that what it needs. We'll be able to water the flowers and give them what they need. We won't be tied into an issue where the flowers need water, but we have to water the turf and everything else all at the same time to do it.
So again, the beauty of your system is it's zone specific, and you can have as many zones as you want.
That's right.
So have you ever run into a landscape that you couldn't put a sprinkler system in?
Well, we typically say nothing's impossible.
Well, this is going to look beautiful, and it really makes sense to me why they're doing it. Did they do anything out back?
Yeah, they do have a portion of the system that's going to be going in the back. Let's go take a look.
Oh, Don, this is a beautiful backyard, and again, something I wouldn't expect in a downtown city setting, but this is nice. I can see why they want to irrigate back here with all the beautiful planting beds.
Right, they did the investment in the front. If you look back here, they do have a sizable investment here again. They have the hardscapes, they have some nice plantings in the turf area. And we're going to take care of the front. Why not take care of the back too?
Well, it makes sense to me, and I love this because it shows how you guys handle raised planting beds. And I like the attention to detail, keeping the lawn clean with the tarps down.
It's much easier as a finished product at the end. We keep everything confined here, get it back to where it belongs, and we walk out of here. And again, we're shooting for that week to 2 weeks without anybody knowing we were ever here.
Now I noticed that you have the controller sitting over here. Whether it's commercial setting like this or a system we saw earlier out at that nice house, how are they controlled and how easy is it for the occupants?
Well, this is the brains of the system. So here's where we do all of our programming. This particular controller has a lot of bells and whistles. So if you go through, you can see we're setting our date, setting our time. We're doing that simply by turning this dial and working our way around. You can see we're setting a start time. When do we want this to come on?
Sure.
We're picking and choosing our days that we want to water. We're setting station run times, so when we're separating these systems out, the turf will run for a certain amount of time, the plantings will run for a certain amount of time. We're doing that all right here.
And once it's set, I mean, I assume you'll help the occupants set it initially. If they want to change it, is it pretty easy for them to go back in and alter it?
It is. It's very easy to do. Again, working your way around the dial, it's very self-explanatory in how it's laid out.
Do you ever get anybody calling you and they have an existing system, they can't figure out how to operate it? You ever willing to go out and help someone?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have an extensive crew of service technicians, and you call and we run.
Boy, that's nice to know. Now, as far as this, you know, I always talk about the evolution of an industry. Have these controllers evolved?
These have evolved a great deal in the past few years. This particular controller is modular. So if, for example, we are to do the front of the house and years later we come back and do the back, it's simply a matter of opening this up, plugging another module into the controller and working off of that module. So we don't need to replace the entire unit with something brand new years down the road if we want to expand.
Is that ever nice? Because I think of in a new construction setting or even in an existing home where you go to the expense of a very nice landscape design, but you don't want to do it all at once.
Right.
You might do part A 1 year, 2 years down the road part B, and then 5 years part C. The irrigation system can grow with it and keep the landscape looking just beautiful year round.
Right, and that is something that we do quite often. Another new innovation is now the controllers are Wi-Fi compatible. Really easy setup, allows you to use your smartphone as another tool with your irrigation system. So if you're on vacation and you're 1,000 miles away, you can reprogram your sprinkler system if you wish. And the other neat thing is it will link to local weather and seasonally adjust your program for you without you doing anything at all.
Well, you know, it's been very educational, very informative. I appreciate you coming on and showing us both these beautiful settings.
My pleasure, Stu.
Now here are some key points to help summarize today's show. A lawn sprinkler system, professionally designed around your specific needs, can help keep your turf and planting beds looking great throughout the growing season. Be sure to hire an experienced contractor who has the proper tools and know-how to efficiently install a sprinkler system without damaging your existing yard. And remember, these irrigation systems work equally well in both residential and commercial settings. Well, we're all out of time for this week's show. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next time at Today's Home Remodeler.
The preceding program was sponsored by the Today's Home Remodeler television network.